Faisal Anwar had always lived a life that followed logic. As a Muslim man, raised in a culture that upheld strong values and traditions, he had always felt that his path had already been mapped out for him. He went to the mosque, prayed 5 times a day, was a good man, but still, he always felt like something was missing. A deeper understanding of life, of the universe, of his own soul. But he could never quite put his finger on it. It was a gray afternoon when it happened. Faisal was on his way home after a long day at work. The streets were busy, the air heavy with rain. Suddenly, without warning, he lost control of his car. In an instant, he felt his body being swept up in the chaos. It happened so quickly that there was no time for fear, no time to think. It was as if the world around him froze. Then, nothing. No sound, no sensation. His body seemed to disappear, and a deep silence enveloped him. Faisal was suddenly nowhere and everywhere at once. His consciousness was sharp, but his body seemed to be gone. In the space where he found himself, there was no time, no space, no boundaries. It was an immense void of light, as though everything around him had been wiped away. He floated without gravity, without direction, without any sense of self. But there was no fear. There was only a sense of calm, of serenity. He could hear his own thoughts, but they felt as though they were coming from another time or dimension. Thoughts about his life, about the choices he had made, about everything he had always known. But there was one thought that was strongest. What is the meaning of it all? And then the light appeared. Faisal can't quite explain it, but it wasn't light as you would see it in the physical world. It was an energy that enveloped everything. That seemed to touch his soul. The light was warm and full of love, like an embrace that filled his entire being with peace. And then he saw something, or rather, someone. A figure appeared before him, large yet at the same time very near. Faisal felt no fear, only an unimaginable calm. It was God. Not as he had always envisioned God, not as an almighty figure watching from a distant cloud. No, this God was different. He had no stern gaze, no judgment. He was full of love, a love that transcended everything. It was as if the entire space was filled with the essence of love, a love that transcended boundaries, that understood everything. God looked at Faisal and said nothing. It was as though a deep, silent connection existed between them. And then a message came. It was simple, but it struck Faisal to the core of his being. Faisal, you have devoted your life to understanding the truth, but you have forgotten to see that everything around you is one. All people, all living beings, everything that exists is connected. The division you see, the hatred, the wars, are mere shadows of what truly matters. You are all one. You are made from the same source, of love. Faisal was silent. It was so simple, yet so deep. What did God mean by, "You are one"? He had always believed that different religions, different cultures, people from different backgrounds and beliefs, each had their own paths. He had always thought that each group had its own truth, separate from the other. But here, in this moment, he felt that everything was intertwined, that the separation between people was just an illusion, created by fear, by misunderstanding. God continued, "Love is the key, Faisal. You have seen what hatred can do in the world. But love, unconditional love, that is what changes the world. You must embrace each other in your differences. You must look beyond the superficial divisions and see each other for who you truly are. When you share love, when you bring peace, then you will see the light of truth." Faisal understood. His heart filled with an indescribable peace. He felt a deep connection with everything around him, with the people, with nature, with the universe itself. Everything was connected. What he had always seen as separate elements were actually parts of the same, greater whole. And then it happened. The light around him grew more intense, like a gentle force that pulled him back. He felt his body again, gravity, the physical sensations. His consciousness returned to his body, and he woke up in the hospital. It was strange. He was back, but not the same. The experience he had gone through had changed him. The message he had received was not just a spiritual insight, it was a call to action. He now understood that he wasn't only meant to improve his own life, but that he was meant to help the world remember who they truly were. Faisal began to realize that love wasn't just in religion or spirituality. It was a universal force present in everyone and everything. He felt compelled not to judge others anymore, to look beyond the superficial differences and instead search for what connected them. It was no longer enough to just say, "I am good." Now he had to share his love and understanding with others. The time in the hospital brought Faisal new insights. He looked at his friends differently, his family, the people he met in the world. He no longer saw strangers. He saw people just like him, searching for love, peace, and understanding. And he understood that as long as people were trapped in hatred and division, the world could never fully live in harmony. His message became clearer and clearer. We are all one. We are all connected by the power of love. That was the truth he had seen. It was not philosophy, not religion, not an abstract thought. It was a fact. And if we could all understand that, everything would change. Faisal began to lead his life differently, not as a man who thought his faith and his beliefs were the only truth, but as someone who understood that there was more to it than that. He looked for ways to connect others, to bring more peace into his life and in the world. He now understood that it wasn't enough to just believe in his own truth. It was time to work together, to embrace each other, and create a better world. Together. Because we are all one. One in love. One in light. One in the deep, invisible bond that connects everything and everyone. Faisal had reached a point in his life where he knew the greatest change he could make didn't come from the outside, but from within. The world was full of conflict, division, and hatred. But the experience he had gone through, the message he received from God, never left him. It wasn't just something he had experienced. It was a truth that had completely changed him. In the weeks that followed, Faisal began to see his life with new eyes. Every encounter, every smile, every conversation suddenly had more meaning. He felt a connection with everyone around him, not as an abstract idea, but as a profound truth that was undeniable. He understood that the hatred between people was only born from fear and misunderstanding. And the only way to overcome that hatred was by giving love and compassion, even to those who found it difficult to receive love. Faisal realized that love didn't require grand gestures. It was in the small things. In listening to someone without judgment, in helping a stranger, in simply being there for another. Every act of love, no matter how small, was a step toward creating that peace the world so desperately needed. But there was more. Faisal understood that he couldn't just embrace the people around him. He had to embrace the world itself. Nature, animals, the universe. Everything was connected. It was as if he had developed a new, deeper relationship with the world around him. He started spending more time in nature, meditating and reflecting on the immense wonders of life. And by doing so, he began to find the silence and peace he had experienced during his near-death experience more and more in his daily life. Faisal was no longer someone who was simply searching for answers. He had found them, not in religion or dogma, but in connection with other people and with the world. And it was clear that if every human embraced this truth, the world would change. Not in a day, not in a year, but with every person who shared their love and light with others. And so Faisal began to work on his mission, to spread the message of unity, peace, and love. He started conversations with people from different religions, cultures, and backgrounds. What he discovered was astonishing. Everywhere he went, he met people who were looking for the same things: love, acceptance, and peace. It didn't matter whether they were Muslim, Christian, Buddhist, or atheist. At their core, they all longed for the same thing: a world where they felt seen, heard, and understood. Faisal now knew that the key to change didn't lie in grand words or political power, but in the daily actions of ordinary people. It wasn't enough to pray for peace, to hope that the world would change. The change had to come from within, through the way we treated each other, how we looked at one another with love and patience, even when we didn't always agree. And the beautiful thing was that, as Faisal radiated more love himself, he noticed that others began to feel that energy. It was as if love spread like a wave, multiplying with every encounter, every act of kindness. He discovered that you never know what impact a simple act of love can have on someone, and how that person can, in turn, touch another. Faisal's experience wasn't a singular event. It was the beginning of a journey that would influence his entire life. He had discovered the essence of humanity, that we are all connected, that we all share the same power of love, and that it is our collective responsibility to use that power to improve the world. And although the world may not yet be perfect, Faisal knew deep down that the change he wanted to see began with himself. And if he brought his light into the world, then he, together with others, would contribute to a world that would eventually be filled with peace, love, and unity. For the truth was clear: if we are all one, then the love we give and receive is the only force that truly makes a difference.